And here we go. Welcome, Kara. Welcome. How are you?
I'm so excited. I'm excited for today's topic.
Yes, today's topic is going to be amazing. So, let's start with this. Thank you, everyone, for watching and tuning in, watching us. Today, we're going to be talking about boundaries and planning, two amazing things that you need on every business and relationship. So, Kara, as a leadership coach,
Hmm.
I know that boundaries and planning go hand in hand.
Yes.
What would you recommend somebody who's starting their business to do? Have a checklist on boundaries, have a checklist on planning, since you're working with leaders every day.
Yeah. Um, oh, I love that question. So, would I have them start with like a checklist for boundaries or a checklist for planning? I think both are really, really important, obviously. However, what I have found to be consistently true is people who start their own business, specifically entrepreneurs, we do this because we want to have more life in our life and still make some business with some business and do good in the world, right? We want the trifold, trifecta of deliciousness. And we get so excited and so engaged that we end up working 16 to 20 hours every day, 7 days a week. And then we're burning out, we're exhausted, we're not feeling the success, even if tangibly we're creating it because we're so tired. So my always go to first is around boundaries slash self care. Although when I do boundaries, I attach it to self care,
Okay.
which is a little different, right, than other people do. So first, alignment check, right? I noticed that, or you may have noticed that I didn't come in with a list of boundaries. I noticed you have none either. Turns out boundaries are in our head and they get stepped on all of the time because they're literally invisible.
Yes.
Right. So starting starting down the path of boundaries and doing setting boundaries intentionally for them to get crossed, which often goes against the training that we've had, right? Like we set a boundary and we're like, "Oh, why are people crossing my boundary?" because they can't see it. And or they don't respect me. That's not the case. They just didn't know it was there. They literally just didn't know it was there. So we set boundaries intentionally to have them crossed, expecting to have them crossed because we don't set the boundaries for somebody else. If we're doing that, we're making a request of somebody else. It's not a boundary, it's an ask, right? Please don't do this. Would you not would this makes me uncomfortable. Could you not do those things? A boundary instead is this is not a thing that I allow in my life and I'm going to behave this way when it happens. They're
Mm-hmm.
for ourselves. So for entrepreneurs, I attach that to our self care, right? So the four basic things that you need to do to take care of to just maintain your existence to succeed. And that's going to be first, start thinking about boundaries around your meat suit. What do you need so that you don't seize up and turn into a tin woodsman? When are you going to bed? When are you showering? What are you eating? How are you moving? Right? The basic boundaries that you need to establish for your body. What comes
I
next?
love that because right before we were talking about, that I need time with my girlfriend and whatnot, that is one thing that we were talking about it just yesterday. And I love that you start with the basics because people
Basic.
a lot of time, including me, okay, think that boundaries for business and to start a successful business start with everything you do from the door inside your office and not what you do outside. In Believe it or not, it has a lot to do with what you do at home, how's your relationship with everybody that you work with. It is so important. It's not just, I get here, I read my emails. No, it's what time do you go to bed? Do you have a proper sleep? What we're talking earlier, being hydrated. It's a bunch of things, and they're simple. While they're simple,
Mm.
we're not disciplined. And I say we because I was telling you that the weekend I was dehydrated, and it was my fault. And it's so simple: just grab it, chug it, and put it back down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it's that, like, it goes back to that we get so caught up in what we think we're supposed to do that the basics are the first things that go out the window.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it is in my experience super common for new entrepreneurs to be dehydrated, malnourished, a lack of sleep. Those are the first three things. And you start taking care of that and suddenly they're like, "Oh, I didn't know I was stupid yesterday, but I feel so much smarter now that I have slept and rested and washed myself and ate something healthy." Amazing.
Yes, and the thing is that the switch, the mentality switch, unfortunately does not hit until something heavy happens.
Yeah.
Or when you say, you know what, I've heard this for so long, let me give it a try.
May as well try it. Yeah. If everybody's saying it, maybe there's reasons. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So meat suit first. Very first thing you want to think about is literally, are you taking care of your physical body? Because if you do not, and we this is another, everybody says it and we know it's true, but it doesn't apply to us until it does, right? Uh, if you don't take time for your body will take time from you.
Oh, yeah, that is true. That is true.
Mhm.
And the thing is that your body is very forgiven when you're young. They just when you get,
Mhm.
hashtag in my 30s,
Yes.
just like your car has that check engine light, you start with the check knee light, and then the
Mm.
check elbow light, and then the check leg cramps at night
Oh
light.
my God, yes. And then at 50, it's just standing up, and you're like, it's cool. That's normal noises I make now.
Yeah, I'm not old. I'm just crunchy. Crack, crack, crack,
Yeah.
crack.
Got a little snap, crackle, pop. I don't know. I'm old school. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that brings me to just the thing that everybody says it, but I think we don't internalize it. People don't plan to fail, but we do fail to
All the
plan.
time. All the time. All the time.
Hmm.
Yeah. And these boundaries, like that is part of the planning. If you are setting boundaries around your physical needs, then you are planning to be a healthy human being.
Yeah, and that relates with your communication with other people, because that's the one thing that happens, that we say we're gonna go to bed at this time,
Yes.
whatever. And guess what? Somebody calls you, you get this. And most of the time, they're not really important things. It's like not a matter of life or death situation. And we decide to say, you know what, I'm going to watch or talk, or I'm guilty of that. And TikTok, if you're hearing this, it's your fault that I don't go to bed early.
And bless you for the algorithm that has me check in every hour that I'm scrolling. It's like, have you stopped and drank water? When was the last time you went to the bathroom? Good check, TikTok. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I've gotten on TikTok that it's time to go to sleep. I haven't gotten those.
Oh, yeah.
So,
TikTok knows me, I guess.
oh my God, what level TikTok are you on? It's like
The
Candy Crush.
spicy level. Like, oh, she follows a lot of the neuro spicy things. We should probably make sure she's hydrating and taking break. Yeah, yeah. You're not wrong, TikTok.
That's funny.
So that gets me to the second one. So for setting boundaries, first we do the meat suit, right? And that allows us to communicate with other people. Now I'm not available for that. Not because I don't care about you or don't want to be a part of what you're doing, but I go to bed at 8, so at 7 o'clock I'm not taking calls. Sorry.
Hmm.
Not sorry. Yeah. The second one is your hormone soup. 58% of our productivity is linked to how we are feeling. For anyone who does not believe that statistic, think about the last time you stubbed your toe.
Okay, I remember the day.
So if somebody comes up to you right after that happens, how do you respond?
Usually, like, most people laugh because I respond with dog sounds like "Arr."
Not great communication is what I heard there, right? Like, or very clear, but maybe not real intentional and cooperative communication. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that the pain does not allow me to speak sometimes.
And that is my point in a nutshell. Yes. And it's so obvious when it's obvious, right? Especially we can tell when somebody else is having one of those days and they're not managing it, right? Real easy to see in those situations. Less so when, let's say, you're the one having a day and you think you're maintaining, turns out nobody else thinks that. but you're so in your head about it that you're not getting that external feedback to make those better choices.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we stub our toe and our brain's just not available for adulting until the pain subsides. Sorry, not sorry. This is where I'm at. So making a point to set some boundaries around how you feel, around your hormone soup. How many times a day do you need to have positive contact and engagement? How many times a day do you need to rest and recover? What do you need? I like to think of it around the three basics, right? So, little neuroscience here for everybody. The three main neurotransmitters that our brain uses to communicate how we are feeling is oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine.
Hmm. Okay.
Handy to know that, right?
Yes.
If you are struggling with high levels of stress, you need to up your oxytocin. So that's going to come from positive touch and social engagement. As far you can do it to yourself, literally, this is one of my favorite tools. I was just doing this with somebody. So you put your hand under your armpit with your thumb out front on both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this behavior, what it simulates physiologically and triggers in our brain, is being hugged as a child. So just like when you go to pick up a kid, this
Yeah.
is what they feel. So you are tangibly, when you do this, hugging yourself as the parent of your inner child.
And it's actually pretty comfortable after I did it.
I have watched people just immediately relax when they do that. I've watched people immediately break down into sobs if they're going through something because
Hmm.
giving yourself that kind of oxytocin boost is not what we're trained to do, but it's hot.
Yes.
It's so good. Yep. Um,
And that brings me to one thing before you jump to the next
mhm,
topic.
mhm.
You know, one of the things that in my professional life I've noticed is that the more trouble you have in life, the less you see opportunity.
Yep.
And now that you're mentioning I think would be a great tool for somebody who's going through a tough time, needs that extra oxytocin to
Yeah.
pick them up and maybe see an opportunity where you think is just the worst time of your life.
100%. Yes, that exactly. So the same thing with serotonin and dopamine. If you are dealing with high levels of stress, the oxytocin is the first one you want to give yourself, but serotonin and dopamine play a huge part in relieving cortisol from your brain, right? From processing that. So finding things that give you either a dopamine esque, like happy juice kind of experience. So, whatever that thing is, it could be coloring, it could be sticky notes, it could be messing with a friend, whatever that is,
Hmm.
making a boundary to make sure that you're getting that allows you to process and communicate better. Same thing with serotonin. So, if you need some quiet time, you need that white noise in your life so you can get that zen feel, making sure that you are planning for that and then setting boundaries. To know that you need those things and that by providing them for yourself makes you a better person, makes you a better business person, a better person, and a better leader person, a better parent person, a better partner person.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that brings me to, because now we spoke about the meat suit and what we do on the day-to-day basis, and this also translates to interpersonal communication and business. When we say about a boundary, is that Kara touched one thing that I think a lot of people may have overlooked, is that you can set a boundary and you feel that people are running over that boundary, and you're like, but wait a second, that's my boundary, why nobody's respecting it? And she mentioned one thing: they don't know it. If they don't know, how can you blame them for something that they don't know? So it's very important for you when you set a boundary. Okay, you know it. Make sure the other person you're interacting with knows it. Okay. So then the next thing in business, how many times we say that meetings are overrated, that they get you nowhere fast. You just spend company time, because you just want to have a meeting and
Meeting
drink a
culture.
night, yeah, have a coffee. And in reality, if the meeting is properly led, you know, it could be super beneficial, because we were talking about the environment that we create. And I say we create because the business doesn't do it for you. Your better half or your other half does not do it for you. You create that environment. So when you create that environment where you say, okay, I'm going to have a meeting with my coworkers or with my employees or whomever you're working with, make sure that you hit the key points of your boundaries or your business or your task. Those boundaries have to be met. And we forget, in, I would say it, in my case, I've had to go back after the meeting and send a quick email. Oh, I forgot. It happens. I'm human.
Yeah.
But don't let it just pass and say, on the next meeting I'll get it. I'll catch it on the next one, or I'll say it. Because that's how people get mixed signals, get information incorrect. You have to make sure and put all the boundaries up front, and then you will see not only your employees, the coworkers, everybody will work a lot happier because they know what to expect.
Yes. And I would even go, okay, so I will ask this question. So, did you, in your early time being an entrepreneur, find yourself struggling around meeting timeline boundaries? Like I'd set a 45-minute meeting, but it would go an hour and a half. And that would then push into the next meeting, which then pushed into the next meeting. And I'm like, nobody's understanding my boundaries. They're not respecting it. Did you ever have that experience?
Oh, so many of them. At the beginning, when I was trying to figure out how to actually present my business or present my information, I will deliver so much information. Like if the person was gonna get a PhD on marketing, and
In that,
sometimes still I still do. I am in love with what I do.
yeah,
In when you're in love with what you do, you just tend to talk, and then the person is like trying to be sometimes very polite because you're speaking another language. So yes, it had happened.
yeah,
But one thing that has really helped me on avoiding that.
yeah. What?
I don't know if you do the same, but if you do something different, I would love to know. Uh, Whenever I know I'm gonna meet with somebody regarding a business or regarding something, I do my best to have bullet points.
Yeah, that's excellent.
And what I do is I tell them, hey, today we're gonna cover A, B, C, and D. Before we get started, are these any of the topics you be here? Are this any of the topics you've been thinking of? If they are, perfect, let's get started. If they're not, let me get what you've been thinking, what's in your head first before we tackle those. And that helps me to really, answer their questions and make sure they get the information upon the boundaries that they need, because I'm gonna jump into second about marketing, how boundaries also apply to marketing. But I don't know, do you do the same, or what is your technique to make sure you don't run over on time?
So mine's a little different only because I do coaching and not marketing, right? So I don't
Hmm.
have quite there's a lot more flex in the conversations that I get into, but I do. I come in and I just use the CARE method. So I start with what are we looking to achieve today? And then we clarify, we assess, we realign so that we can get to that achieve. But I set a timer for myself so that 10 minutes till the end of the call, I'm reminded that we're at 10 minutes to the end of the call. Because what I discovered is it wasn't that other people were walking all over my time boundaries, it's that I was. I was not respecting my own time. So why would they? I modeled for them how to not do that. I set a boundary and then I crossed it. And then I crossed it. And then they would cross and be like, I can't believe but there I had gone just doing it a whole bunch myself. So I had to relearn how to reset my own boundary and honor myself to be able to maintain that for them.
Hmm. But I was listening to you and I'm like, that's exactly the same thing as I said, but on a different
Just a
perspective.
different way.
It's
Yep.
Yeah, and you do the same. You ask them what is in their head, and then you see it applies to either type of business.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Now, talking about boundaries on marketing, one thing that is really important is like, I want you to put marketing not as this thing that only gurus know how to work with, but let's understand it in a more simple way. Marketing is just like playing Monopoly. Why do I say that it's like playing Monopoly? Because if you know the rules, you will thrive. Yes, there's a little bit of luck that has to play in it, but it's also being well versed about the rules.
Mhm.
What do I mean by that? A lot of business owners tell me, hey, I would like a website and I would like that website to generate me X amount of sales. Okay. And they're just focused about the sale, the goal, but they forget that there's a process behind it. And they think that just by putting an ad or putting a blog, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the world is not like that anymore. It used to be like that. You put a couple videos, couple blogs, redirect them to your website, and voila, you have traffic. And one of the things that you have to, as a business owner, is explain exactly what they're going to receive, either they like it or not. I am of the idea of under promise and over deliver, but I am also of the idea that even if the truth hurts, has to be said. Because a lot of people think, well, for example, here in Florida, I don't know how it's on any of the other states, but here in Florida, there's a car dealership every other corner.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's the
Do
same in other
Starbucks
states.
in the Pacific Northwest, but they're
Okay,
pretty
so
close.
let's take Starbucks. So it's a coffee shop. Let's say that you're starting your own coffee shop right across from Starbucks, and you want to have the same foot traffic that the Starbucks right across the street has. Unless you do the work of showing people why is your coffee better, why your coffee tastes better, why your coffee does not make you crash, why your coffee does not pesticides or anything that makes you different, they're going to keep buying what they know, like, and trust.
Yep,
Remember, we've been talking about that, like, and trust in so many episodes. And that is part of the work of
it matters.
boundaries. Yes, it matters a lot, but it's a boundary. You see
Hmm.
how you can, depending upon what's your goal, you have to go ahead and highlight that boundary. We were talking a minute ago about time. And if we don't organize ourselves, and like we said earlier, they don't know what is our time limit. I mean, they may
Yeah.
know, my time limit for a free consult is 30 minutes, for example,
Right,
and you go an hour and a half. It's not their fault.
right, right. Dang
It's
it.
not their fault. It's your fault because you did not have a plan. And you see how I say you did not have a plan, because it's your job to have a plan before you even have paper and pen and sit down with that client or potential business owner.
Yep. I love that. So I would re-say the exact same thing, but in a different language, which is that now we're talking about setting boundaries around your stardust and your mush management. So how that looks is your stardust is the thing that connects us all, right? And the reality that you are a weirdo, freak, crazy person about SEO is your stardust, but it's also the thing that connects you to everybody else because everybody has something that they are like a weirdo freak about,
Hmm.
right? And getting really clear on what your unique thing is, the thing that makes you absolutely your own star, but part of the cosmos is the thing that sells, right? That's you need to get that and lock your boundaries around that so that you can share them. And then the bush management, right? Like when we talk in marketing, what I know around that is that you don't really want to like pull them from not knowing into a sale. You want to go, this is what you already know. Here's where we already align. Here's where it might be a little messy, and here's how I could help you with that messy thing, right? So you're just pulling them from what they already know to what you know.
Hmm.
Smaller step, right? But that means you have to develop your brain to be able to bridge that gap for them, right? Which means you have to be developing your brain. And if you are not leaning into some boundaries around how much time are you taking to retrain, to learn new things, to advance yourself in the area that you're already a genius in, but just be that much more geniusy in, and what weird space are you stepping out of your comfort zone to learn about?
Yep. Getting out of that comfort zone is the next step, I think, because there's nothing like getting boundaries. Because usually, when you set boundaries, when you begin, like any beginning, you're jumping into the unknown. And jump into the unknown, it's scary.
Yeah.
I look,
Yeah.
every time that I get a new software or I get a client that is a new niche that I haven't worked with, although I have a lot of knowledge and information, I still get, scared because it's like, oh, I'm jumping this new thing and now I have to learn all these new things. But guess what? A month or two later, where I feel a little bit comfortable, it's like, boom, now that I have this knowledge, I know exactly how to ride that ride. It makes life so fun being able to be out of your comfort zone, learning new things. I don't know if it's the same for you, Kara, but when you jump into something new and you finally harness it and you understand how to make it work, I don't know. To me, it's just a boatload of dopamine.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm neurospicy, right? So fixations come very, very naturally, very, very happy making. I am 100% an Alice. I'm like, oh, rabbit hole. Let's just jump in. Yeah. Yeah. Stretching out of my comfort zone, because when you do that, you go and you learn something that then moves your comfort zone. So at first, it was really, really intimidating in my life. Like there was a time in my life where that was so stressful. But I got over that relatively early in my life, thanks to my parents deciding to move us to Mexico when I was 15. And there's nothing like being a foreigner in a foreign country, learning to navigate all of those in and outs to really make you get comfortable being uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So from there, it just reinforced my spicy nature to leap out of comfort and into new knowledge. Because as soon as you have that new knowledge, suddenly you're comfortable again, which is so weird.
Yep.
I worked with a coach once who said the one of the things that irritated her the most was the term comfort zone, because it's such a terrible name, which tangibly I get, right? Like you're not comfortable in the comfort zone, because if you were, you wouldn't want to leave it. You would be, by its nature, comfort is
Mhm.
there. But the comfort zone isn't comfortable, it's just familiar. It's what we knew.
Yeah, but that also takes me to that story about the dog and its owner sitting in a porch. Did you know that? Have you heard that story?
No, tell me.
Well, there's this guy, in the porch sitting with his hound dog, and people will walk by the street and hear the hound dog cry, up to a point that somebody stops by and says, "You know what? What's wrong with your dog? Like, why aren't you worried? Why don't you do something about it? Haven't you heard him cry all day?" It's like the things that I know why he's crying. And it's like, what do you mean? You know why he's crying? You haven't done anything? Isn't that cruel? Don't you love your dog? What's wrong with you? And the guy goes like, "Oh, he's sitting on a nail. And why don't you move him?" Well, if he wasn't so afraid of sitting somewhere else, he might have thought about it, but he's so used to sitting on that nail that he'd rather have the pain and cry and everything instead of trying something new.
Right.
So it's not up to me, it's up to him.
Yep. Okay, so I have heard that story, but I had forgotten it, and it is so flipping good. It makes me think my son has this book that he's obsessed with right now. It's called Monster and Boy, and it's the story of a monster who meets the boy whose bed he lives under. It's adorable. And at one point, they're talking about monster history, like how monster parents are with their kids. And this is the narrator's point of view. And he goes, "Some people, I mean monsters, just can't be bothered to try something new." And I was like, "Oh, oh, you swinging today? Okay,
Yup.
yeah." But that's it. I mean, tangibly, that is. And I think that it's, while totally obvious, and it is absolutely something that gets talked about a lot, it's not necessarily something that we set boundaries around or plan for, right? Like
Yeah.
we want to stretch, we want to learn, we want to grow, especially as an entrepreneur. That's non negotiable. If you do not want those things, do not become an entrepreneur. Okay, I'm going to say that again. If you do not want those things, do not become an entrepreneur. You will be miserable. If you are prepared for that, know that you are absolutely going to get it stretched, but plan to up your boundaries around that. Like if you're going to jump into new tech, make sure you're getting extra sleep, extra hydration, definitely getting that extra oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin to process through all of those things so your brain is functioning at its highest level. And prepare for the kickback. As you leap into something new, there's going to be an opposite reaction before you actually start motivating towards the new direction. And if you don't
Hmm.
plan for that,
Yes. And you just mentioned one thing, making that leap. Making that leap may take different forms. So make sure that rested is not only that you have a good night's sleep. Rested is that you have made your brain function properly. My grandfather used to say that resting is not necessarily sitting on a couch looking at the paint dry. Resting is just as simple as changing the action you're doing. So make sure you don't get your brain into, oh, I'm gonna rest, and you're gonna sit down and just watch TV. Or I'm not saying that watching TV is wrong. Please don't get me wrong.
right.
You need to disconnect from life at one point or another, and have your brain see something new. But if you're focused on a goal, we have spoken about the Pomodoro method a while ago. Kara gave us so many good tips. If you have not watched that video, go look for it. But if you did or know about the Pomodoro method, please review the previous book, because Kara has an even improved method, an even better method. So don't miss out on that one. So, but back to what I was saying, have a few activities that do not involve watching TV, that do not involve just sitting watching paint dry, that can distract your brain in a positive way, because that's usually how our brain starts looking for the loopholes or the answers to the things that we've had, the problems that we had in the back that we don't know how to solve. They usually start giving you, your brain will work into giving you answers, or the situation will appear where
Yep,
the answers was right on your under your nose the whole time.
yep, yes. That makes me think of my favorite Pooh Bear quote, right? So Edward the Bear, Pooh Bear, when he was talking in the like first or second chapter of the book with Christopher Robin, they're talking about Christopher Robin's favorite thing is nothing, and he's like, "How do you do that?" He goes, "Well, people ask you what you're going to do, and you say nothing, and then you go do that." And Pooh goes, "Ah, that's right. Sometimes nothing leads to the best somethings."
And that is true. I don't know if you heard Henry Ford when they asked him why he needed so many assistants, and he said his answer was that he needs time to do the most important thing in his business, which is not building car, is thinking.
Yep.
So that doing nothing is not doing nothing.
No.
Your brain is looking for answers that you need. One thing that I don't know if you believe it or not, or you've heard, or you've seen the Law of Attraction movie or the book, or read the book. whatever you're looking for is looking for you too.
Yes.
The second you stop looking for it, it stops looking for you too. So it will get to you when it's due time. So now we have covered planning, we have covered boundaries. In the next thing after those two is enjoy your wins. Because now that you have boundaries, now that you have plan, celebrate those tiny wins. Hey, this whole week you went to bed on time. High five yourself.
Treat yourself. Hmm.
Yeah, do something that lets your body know, hey, you did so good, dude, or duda, or whatever you want to call yourself.
Yes.
In make those little moments count.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
Uh, that is such a huge, and I would even say go ahead and set boundaries around that, right? So making sure that when you are deciding to do a thing, that one, it's an actual thing that you need to do, and that you are setting a buy win on it, and not just a WHEN, like absolutely, I mean a timestamp, but
Hmm.
turn it into a win by setting aside that time for celebration. If you did it, like treat yourself to something nice, even if it's just 5 minutes of patting yourself on the back, like, I nailed that, good job, me.
Oh yeah, it's
So
important.
good. And if you don't succeed, right, then you get a moment to reflect and review. If you've set that 5 minutes into that timestamp anyway, then you have that time to reflect and review, and then you're getting a lesson learned, which you can take with you to the next space and succeed more. So either way, you're winning.
Yep. Yeah. A long time ago, I've said it on the podcast because I've heard it, and it's absolutely true. At least in my life, you never lose. You either win or you learn.
Yeah.
In I was just listening right before I jumped into the live with my girlfriend, and an audio that said that don't be afraid to start from scratch after you have quote unquote failed,
Right.
because you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from knowledge. You're
Yes.
starting from that information that will make you get that leap that we're talking about. So setting boundaries, having a plan, rewarding yourself, and even if you quote unquote fail, which I don't call it failing, because nobody can tell you that starting a business or doing something great didn't take no efforts or some failures along the way.
Yes.
And
So
if
many.
they Yeah, and if they tell you that they actually didn't have any issues, they were either in Harry Potter's world or they were actually doing something illegal. So anything you would like to add to today's lesson?
The
Because
last thing, yeah, I would tie us up with around that failure. So, one of the titles I have claimed for very many years is that I'm a failure expert. When people ask me why I'm so good at what I do, it's so much failure, is the answer. You're welcome. So much
mhm,
failure. And because of that, I have a phrase, right? So, FE, failure expert, in Spanish means faith. On
mhm.
the periodic table, it means iron. So if you have the faith to be a failure expert, you will become as strong as iron.
I love that. I love that. When you said that, why are you so good with what you do, and is because of all the mistakes
So
that you've
much
made.
failure. So much
It,
failure.
it just reminds me my childhood, and reminds me of when I said, okay, I like marketing, like I want to really really learn it. And because one thing that my grandmother, who's the one who raised me, used to be more afraid than anything in the world, was me with a screwdriver in the hand. Because that meant I took the blender apart, I took anything that had screws apart for me to do the challenge, because I didn't like puzzles. I like taking things apart and see if I can put them back together.
Just taking them right.
Yes. So my parents were afraid every time they see me with screwdriver or something that I knew I can take something apart. They're like,
What did
go
he
and check the
do?
house because he took something. Usually it was the blender or the iron. So And I always figure, because most of the time I will put it back together and it will work. And that's how I figure that people that make products in China add so many extra parts that they don't need, because with all the extra parts that I had on the side, the product still worked.
Hmm.
So they just added so many extra parts for no reason.
Like, I don't see what the problem is. It works just fine. Use your expert.
But yes, that same kind of the same thing happened with marketing. But I was lucky enough that I went through a company and I learned through people that already knew it. But some of them allow me to take things apart and see how they work inside, how a website really works, how the coding really works.
Hmm.
And yeah, don't be afraid of failing. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with failing. Hmm.
And it's because you didn't fail.
The thing is that the funny thing is that at that point I was not looking at it as a failure. I'm like, oops, I broke something.
Okay.
Let me
Well, I'm
figure how to
saying
fix
it
it.
failed, right? Like the act of taking it apart and putting it together, that thing, the action failed. It's really easy for us to do this thing and it fails and suddenly we're like, oh, I'm a failure. No,
Hmm.
no. It failed. You're still functioning. So by nature, you're not one of the things that that John took apart. You're still working, which means you have not failed. Now the thing may fail, but you didn't.
Yes, yes. So take that under consideration. A couple things for today. If you get a chance and you're watching this as a recording, go ahead and type down things that you did as an early entrepreneur that now you laugh about. Let us know things that you used to think they were so complicated, and I was like, ha, like breathing.
Mm.
So I would
Mhm.
love to see that.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, immediately that came to mind is scheduling, like time blocking. I thought that was going to be so impossible. And if I don't time block 3 weeks out, my life is a hot mess. Now I need it. I need it.
Okay, see, everybody has one of those things. Mine is not that one, but it's very close to that one. Alrighty, so
Maybe a line.
yes. So now that you have some tools, things to do, how to learn how to set boundaries, remember, be kind to yourself. And if you need assistance with leadership coaching, you got Kara. If you have a company that needs right now to create a company culture and guide your leaders to become better leaders, reach out to Kara. If you need marketing or you need web development, or you just don't know where to get started with because your company is working, but you don't know if it's working right or if it could be working better, I do have a free 30-minute consultation. Reach out to me, phone number 561-346-7243, and look forward to seeing you on our next Monday. Bye.